Chapter 31 Huge Profits, Seeking Investment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Envoy Corbett, Dendel said, glancing at the senior Patriot Party leaders beside him and sighing, after the Federal Provincial Assembly vote, we've officially decided to negotiate a truce and peace with the Orange Party. It's set for the day after tomorrow. The Orange Party, as he called them, were the royalists backing the former Dutch consul, William V, named for his title as Prince of Orange. Colby frowned, stood up, and said loudly, "Mr. Speaker, the French cabinet's position is clear, no compromise without a fight. You and your army just need to win a single battle and hold out for at least 5 days. Great France will take care of the rest, and you'll ultimately crush the Prince of Orange's counterattack." Dendels flushed, clenching his fists. "Mr. Envoy, it's not that we want to give in. But you know, Wilhelmina is not only a cousin, but a traitor. She brought in the Prussian army, spreading lies about us kidnapping her." Colby coughed, looked away, and said casually, "Personally, I think the Princess of Orange was just doing what she felt she had to do. I wouldn't call it treason." Dendels was stunned, then remembered that the envoy in front of him represented King Louis XVI of France. The irony struck him. Another dictator helping the Dutch people resist a dictator, maybe that's just the sad reality for a small country. Dendels moved on. "Now, over 20,000 Prussian troops are in Amsterdam, demanding we release Wilhelmina. God, we don't even have her. And our army only has 7,000 soldiers, with equipment far inferior to the Prussians." This was Wilhelmina's plan to help her husband regain power, making a public appearance in The Hague to provoke the rebels into arresting her. Of course, they were afraid of her status as a Prussian princess and quickly released her. However, she claimed the Patriot Party was still holding her and asked Prussia to send troops to rescue her. In reality, she had quietly fled to the border city of Nijmegen and gone into hiding. Colby nodded. "I'm not asking you to defeat the Prussians, just make them realize they'll face serious resistance. And I hear 300 French volunteers, sympathetic to your situation, are coming to help you fight. They're bringing over 2,000 muskets and some cannons, apparently." 2,000 guns and cannons. Dendels perked up. "That's exactly what we need. Where did you get the cannons?" "Still, 300 people seems like a small number." Colby quickly corrected him. "Maybe someone liberated the cannons from a French warship. Remember, France is providing 600,000 livres in assistance, but we're not sending troops. And don't underestimate 300 people. Many of them are artillerymen. A good artilleryman can turn the tide of a war. Remember, this could be your only shot at staying in power." Dendels exchanged glances with the others and then said to Colby, "Mr. Special Envoy, we need to discuss this further." "Of course." Just an hour later, the Patriot Party voted to end the peace talks, defend Amsterdam, and fight the Prussian army. 2 days later, a dozen or so businessmen, craftsmen, and even some people dressed as beggars slipped into the Dutch border city of Nijmegen through different routes and soon met with 2 French spies gathered in a small house outside Nijmegen. Lieutenant Foydu pointed to the eastern side of a map of Nijmegen on the table. "Wilhelmina is probably hiding at Countess Lip's manor and rarely goes out. Spend the next few days learning the roads and the area. We'll make our move when she goes to church this Sunday." Palace of Versailles. Joseph lounged on a deck chair, soaking up the winter afternoon sun and letting out a long yawn. The tax bill was still stuck in the High Court. No news from the Netherlands yet. The police force was just getting started, nothing happening. Since arriving in this world, he finally had some time to himself, but Dr. Lamarck, worried he'd be bored, sent him the refined salicin he requested last time. Joseph quickly told him to just send someone to pick it up next time. No need for him to come all the way from Paris. After Lamarck left, Joseph picked up the large bottle of powder, now almost pure white, opened the lid, and took a whiff. No trace of alcohol smell, just pure salicin. He opened a box in his study containing glycerin, rose essential oil, and other supplies he'd prepared. Along with some weighing equipment, he carefully measured out 1,000 grams of glycerin, 60 grams of rose essential oil, and 22 grams of salicin. and mixed them together in a large glass flask. The solution turned a pinkish-purple color, emitting the aroma of essential oil, with no sign of the salicin at all. Then, Joseph mixed the first batch of angel water at a ratio of 1 part mixed solution to 3 parts water. He frowned, looking at the large bottle of thin liquid. As a cosmetic, it looked a bit ordinary. After a moment, he decided to add a thickener. He grabbed a candlestick from the table and pulled out a high-grade beeswax candle. He melted the candle powder into the glycerin, and as he stirred, the solution quickly thickened and became opaque. "Now it looks like skin care products," he said, nodding in satisfaction. He scooped out a small amount of angel water with his fingers and spread it evenly on the back of his hand. It felt smooth and moisturizing, with a floral fragrance, and was very pleasant. After waiting half an hour and seeing no adverse reactions like allergies or irritation, Joseph called his beautician and applied some to his face. Then, the beautician and her assistant were brought in. Under Joseph's direction, they put the sticky pink-purple gel into 7-ounce oblong glass bottles and placed them into a delicate wooden box with angel water printed on it. Even with their nimble hands, the two of them worked hard until 3 p.m. to fill about 50 bottles. Joseph, confirming that the beautician's skin felt good, ordered Iman to send 40 bottles to a well-known luxury store in Paris for consignment. Priced at 15 livres each, he himself took the remaining 10 bottles to Queen Mary. When it came to cosmetics, who could be a better, and free, spokesperson? Walking down the corridor, Joseph did a quick calculation and found that each bottle of angel water cost just over 1 livre. Glycerin in this era, refined from expensive olive oil, accounted for 90% of the cost. The main active ingredient, salicin, was the cheapest, selling for 15 livres a bottle. After deducting transportation and sales expenses, he could make at least 12 livres and 10 sous. He couldn't help but sigh. Women really are where the money's at. Boss Ma knew what he was talking about. This book is being recommended for new books, so your support is very important for the young author. I urge readers to save it, vote for recommendations, monthly votes, and leave comments. The young author is grateful. Your support is the motivation for me to write. Reader Group 103-621-7580. Everyone is welcome to join the group and chat and discuss together. Chapter 32 Big Shopping, Seeking Investment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Queen Mary popped the cork on the glass bottle with interest, carefully dabbed some of the pinkish-purple cream onto the back of her hand. "Well, feels pretty smooth, not bad at all." She smiled at her son. "Joseph, honey, you're always full of surprises. Where'd you get this?" Joseph launched into salesman mode. "I developed it myself. I'm calling it angel water. It softens your skin and it's especially good for clearing up acne." Hearing that, Queen Mary immediately waved over the maid standing by the door. "Morgana, give this a try." Joseph noticed then that Morgana had a few pimples on her forehead, which she hadn't even bothered to cover with makeup. A lot of these palace maids are only 17 or 18, right in that awkward acne phase. Seeing Morgana approaching quickly, Queen Mary took out one of the 9 wooden boxes in front of her and handed it to her. Morgana curtsied, clearly surprised and grateful. "Thank you so much, Your Majesty." Joseph, beaming, turned to the Queen. "Just find a chance to drop it into conversation with the ladies, mention that you're using it." Queen Mary playfully stroked his hair, feigning annoyance. "So, you expect to get paid for giving your mother a few bottles of skin care?" Joseph immediately stood up straight, acting all wounded. "I put so much work and so many experiments into getting angel water just right. I finally nailed it today, and you're the first person I thought of. And now you won't even do me this little favor. No love." The Queen, amused, grabbed a biscuit from the table, popped it into his mouth, and placated him. Okay, I'll put in a good word for you, alright." Turns out, Joseph didn't need to worry about promoting angel water at all. The Queen didn't even need to lift a finger. The ladies of Versailles were practically glued to her, watching for any new trends. The second they spotted something different, they'd jump on it. that afternoon, the Duchess of Broye, who'd come by to chat with the Queen and listen to music, noticed the fancy wooden box sitting on the dressing table. She immediately turned to her own maid. "What's in that box?" "Which shop sent it?" that the maid whispered hurriedly. "It's a skincare product from His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. They call it angel water. Word is, His Highness developed it himself." Angel water? That's a catchy name. The Duchess of Broye didn't put much stock in the developed by the Crown Prince himself bit. She figured some skincare company was probably just using his name to get ahead. When Queen Mary heard her, she promptly ordered a servant to bring out another box of angel water and generously handed it over. "This stuff's actually pretty good, especially for clearing up blemishes." The Duchess of Broye was thrilled but played it cool. "Oh, I couldn't possibly take it." "Nonsense, I've got plenty." "Go on, take it." "Well, if you insist." "Thank you, Your Majesty," that the other ladies nearby perked up, their eyes green with envy. They were kicking themselves for not spotting the Queen's new toy first. Queen Mary, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, smiled and told her maid, de Beninac, to give a box to everyone. Suddenly, all the ladies were happy. Before long, the word about the Queen using the trendy new skincare product, angel water, was spreading through Versailles like wildfire. By evening, almost all the aristocratic women were buzzing about where to buy angel water, especially the younger girls, who were losing their minds. Apparently, they heard that angel water had been developed by the Crown Prince himself. "If I don't buy a bottle right now, how can I seriously claim to be in love with His Highness?" Finally, someone found the source. The Queen got it directly from His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. Immediately, someone else slipped the Crown Prince's personal beautician 50 livres to get the inside scoop. Turns out, that afternoon, 40 bottles of angel water were dropped off at a high-end store in Paris on consignment. It was already dark, so the ladies couldn't go out, so God knows how many girls stayed up all night, waiting for dawn. Meanwhile, the assistant to the Dauphin's personal beautician was fuming, clutching the 50-livre coin. Why hadn't they come to me? He couldn't help but think back to his afternoon carriage ride, going from store to store with that bag of angel water slung over his shoulder, especially that Silver Night perfume shop that just opened on the Champs-Élysées, practically spitting distance from the old palace. He and the manager talked for what felt like forever, but the guy was firm, 100 livres per month to carry the stuff, end of story. That was just their policy. Even dropping the Crown Prince's name didn't sway him. Even though this was one of the most popular shops in Paris, he didn't dare promise that kind of money for His Highness without the green light. In the end, he had to leave, fuming. Luckily, the manager at Source of Elegance, a smaller perfume and cosmetics shop across the street, was more reasonable, so he left the 5 bottles of angel water there that were originally intended for the Silver Night. By the time he finished the consignment run and got back to Versailles, it was almost dark. And here he was, the only one who knew where to get the stuff and got no one asking to know for 50 livres. The next morning, before you could blink, a flood of carriages was racing out of Versailles toward Paris. At the fanciest jewelry store next to the Louvre, a lady's maid spotted a little wooden box with the words angel water stamped on it in the window and squealed with delight. "Ma'am, there it is." Just then, 2 teenage girls of 17 or 18 came in. They forgot their manners, and barreled toward the window. "Quick! That's it, I'll take it." The noble lady was stunned, then just went for it, grabbing the clerk. "I want it too." 10 bottles. The clerk was super apologetic. "Madam, we only have 5 bottles of this angel water." "I'll take them all." "No way, I was here first." "Give it to me." "How much?" The clerk was trying to back away from the two factions. 15 livres per bottle, 75 livres in total. The noble lady was on it in a heartbeat. "I'll give you 80 livres. "Deal?" The lady sized up the girls with a sneer. "You think I'm scared of a couple of little girls?" She calmed herself and said smoothly. 90 livres. "It's mine." 100 livres. 120 livres. In the end, money talks. The noble lady walked out with a triumphant smile, clutched her 5 bottles of angel water, and showed the 2 little girls who was boss. She had to pay 150 livres for it. Meanwhile, 5 or 6 groups of aristocratic ladies were walking into the Silver Night perfume store on the Champs-Élysées, asking if they carried angel water. They figured, if any place would have it, it'd be the most famous luxury perfume store in Paris. The Silver Night manager could only watch them leave with a forced smile, mentally kicking himself about yesterday afternoon. Not long after, at the Source of Elegance store, an all-out war was beginning. Chapter 33 Paris Angel Trading Company. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Life moved at a snail's pace back in the 18th century. Even though Joseph was aware of the frenzy for angel water among the ladies at Versailles, the beautician's assistant didn't bring back the news from the store until the following evening. So, total sales were 1,460 livres. Joseph asked the young man, surprised. 40 bottles. Yes, Your Highness. Those ladies are tripping over each other to buy it at inflated prices. Forget getting it for the original price. I heard the entourages nearly came to blows at Source of Elegance. Joseph sighed. Darn, I priced it too low. Looks like I'm not ruthless enough. I still underestimate the power of a lady's purse. And I didn't fully grasp the Queen's influence on fashion trends. He learned his lesson and needed to fix his mistake. Joseph immediately decided to hike the price. Of course, you can't just slap a higher price tag on the original product. That would look bush league. Joseph realized his initial business plan was too rushed and failed to tap into the full commercial potential of angel water. He immediately returned to his study and began writing furiously. After scribbling away for pages, revising as he went, he finally stopped, satisfied. In the revised business plan before him, the original angel water was rebranded as a sample size, and the official version was now divided into 3 tiers, luxury, premium, and standard. Divide the market and conquer ladies with different budgets. The ingredients and packaging for the standard version would remain the same as before, but the size would be reduced to 4 ounces, and the price would be 14 livres. The premium version would build on this, adding a touch of olive oil, putting it in a heart-shaped glass bottle, and packaging it in a brass box. This would sell for 26 livres for 4 ounces. The luxury version would then take the premium version, add a dash of lanolin, and offer it in scents like lavender, jasmine, and immortelle. Basically, different types of essential oils, bottled in a flower-shaped container representing the scent, and packaged in a sterling silver box, priced at 50 livres for 4 ounces. Moreover, he needed to develop a whole line of angel water products. His first thought was a face mask. He'd seen the face masks of the time, which were usually slathered directly onto the face or held in place with a covering. The disposable cloth masks with openings for the eyes, nose, and mouth hadn't been invented yet, and these were ridiculously easy to make. Just get some cloth cut into face shapes and soak them in angel water without the thickening agent. Judging by the ladies of Versailles' beauty product obsession, the market for face masks was sure to be huge. Joseph divided the face masks into 3 tiers as well. The luxury version would be made of silk, the premium version of wool, and the standard version of cotton. They'd be disposable, to be thrown away after a single use. The prices would be 5 livres, 3 livres, and 2 livres apiece, respectively. In addition, the product line would include hand cream, foot cream, toner. In reality, it was just a matter of tweaking the ratio of glycerin and salicin or adding more lanolin. Change the packaging and name, and boom, another product. It was a classic cosmetic company move. Alongside enriching the product line, Joseph also revised the marketing plan. Relying on consignment wasn't going to cut it. Only direct sales stores looked truly professional. Implement a VIP membership system, divided into gold, silver, and standard tiers. The first 2 membership cards would be made of actual gold and silver, dripping with luxury. Finally, he'd use a licensed franchise model to spread across Europe. Joseph stared at the stack of business plans and realized this was more than he could handle alone. It would take a company and a whole crew to pull this off. he immediately summoned his followers and started delegating tasks. The accountant was tasked with buying raw materials like glycerin and customizing bottles and packaging. This time, they needed to sign long-term contracts with suppliers to ensure a steady supply. The beautician and several maids were put in charge of filling the angel water. Currently, they were producing 200 bottles a day, but the volume would increase once the specialty stores were ready. The lawyer was sent to register a company in Joseph's name. Joseph, struggling with a name, paused. After thinking for a while, he decided to emphasize the connection with angel water, so the company name was finally decided, Paris Angel Trading Company. As for the company's location, recruitment, management, and employees, he wasn't worried. All the bottles and packaging used in cosmetics were custom-made from Parisian stores. Raw materials like glycerin and essential oils were readily available on the market. The company Angel of France would only be responsible for the final step of filling, packaging, and sales. These tasks required no special skills, so workers could be hired easily. Paris, one of the most commercially developed cities in Europe, had an abundance of management and sales talent. Plus, most of the crown prince's entourage were sitting around doing nothing. If they were short-handed, he could put them to work. The one core technology for all the products, salicin, was firmly in Joseph's hands. Even Lamarck didn't know he was processing cosmetic ingredients for the crown prince. Therefore, even if everyone he hired turned against him, they couldn't reproduce a single drop of angel water. After assigning the work, Joseph was free again. Seeing that it was still early, he asked Iman to ready the carriage and head to Paris, intending to choose the store location himself. The carriage bumped along for hours, and shortly after noon, they entered the city of Paris. Iman suddenly pointed out the window and said, "Your Highness, your perfume workshop, oh, it's been converted into a pharmaceutical workshop now, right over there." Sure enough, Joseph saw a large courtyard in the distance, near a tributary of the Seine, with a huge water wheel slowly turning on the east side. He said to Iman, "Let's go take a look." "Yes, Your Highness." The yard was huge, with more than a dozen buildings and a plot of land the size of 2 basketball courts. Seeing the clothes and bearing of Joseph and his party, the gatekeeper didn't dare stop them, instead leading them into the courtyard. Soon, Lamarck emerged in an apron, saluted Joseph, and said, "Your Highness, what brings you here?" Joseph returned the greeting with a smile, "I'm planning to open a store in Paris, so I thought I'd drop by." "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness," Lamarck said. "Actually, I wanted to discuss something with you." "Oh. What is it? Please, tell me." Lamarck gestured toward the workshop. "We used to have over 40 workers here, but purifying salicin doesn't require so many. Do you think we should lay some off, or have them make perfume again? More people is a good thing." Joseph immediately ordered, "Don't lay anyone off, and don't make perfume. Buy more equipment and keep expanding salicin production. That'll keep them busy." His goal was to build Paris Angel into a luxury goods empire that sold throughout Europe and landed in the Americas. The demand for core ingredients would be massive. This book is currently recommended as a new book. It is very important to new authors. I urge readers to save, vote for recommendations, monthly votes, and leave messages. The young author is grateful. Your support is my motivation to code. Reader Group 103-621-7580. Everyone is welcome to join the group and chat and discuss together. Chapter 34 Secret Weapon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lamarck gave Dr. Larceny, who stood beside him, a look. Larceny stepped forward. "Your Highness, leave everything to me. Mr. Lamarck will be leaving in a few days." "Leaving?" Larceny explained, "Actually, Mr. Lamarck has received a special grant from the French Medical Association to conduct plant research in South America. There are incredible plants there, and maybe they'll discover new medicines. He's already resigned as palace doctor. As for purifying salicin, he's taught me everything. He's basically done here." Lamarck cleared his throat and bowed deeply. "Your Highness, I'm truly sorry. A big reason I got this grant was because the Medical Association read my paper on salicin's effectiveness. You were the first signatory, by the way. But this opportunity to go to South America is too good to pass up. Joseph remembered receiving a letter from the Medical Association a couple of days prior, acknowledging his contribution to Salacin. He hadn't paid it much attention, but now he realized it was because of Lamarck's paper. Before, he would have congratulated Lamarck and seen him off to South America personally. But now, after seeing the professional setup and equipment in the workshop, and the skilled workers, he had other plans. He wanted to start trial producing the legendary drug he'd been thinking about since he came into this world, penicillin. With penicillin, he could cure his pneumonia, for starters. But this miracle drug had critical military applications, too. In 18th century warfare, injuries were almost always fatal due to infection, but penicillin could resurrect the wounded. Imagine one side of a war constantly sending healed soldiers back to the front lines, while the other side kept losing theirs. How could the latter ever win? He'd been wanting to make penicillin for ages, but it was incredibly complex. It required a top-notch lab, experimental and culture equipment, and a team of professionals to run it all. These things hadn't been possible before, but now they were, thanks to the pharmaceutical workshop in front of him, with a little extra equipment, Lamarck's expertise, and these workers. Penicillin could be invented over 100 years ahead of schedule. Lamarck couldn't leave now. Joseph shook his head. No need to apologize. It's my fault for not seeing the bigger picture. Your talents shouldn't be confined to this small factory. The unknowns of biomedicine are where you can really shine. Lamarck looked moved. Thank you for understanding. Believe me, if there's ever anything I can do here, I'll be back in a heartbeat. Joseph smiled slightly. I'm just a little disappointed. I was hoping you could help me trial a new drug. But I guess I'll have to wait until you get back from South America. Hearing new drug, Lamarck perked up. Oh. What kind of drug are we talking about? Joseph had been about to mention penicillin, but then realized the initial preparations would take time. It was better to start with a simpler project for Lamarck to get the team warmed up, so, he put penicillin on hold for a moment. I've heard of a drug that can slow aging, prevent miscarriage, and even, improve a man's virility. Lamarck racked his brain, but nothing matched that description. He was about to shake his head, but then remembered the magical Salacin. He quickly sobered up. That sounds incredible. Are you sure such a thing exists? Positive, Joseph nodded. It even has a special name, tocopherol. Tocopherol was vitamin E, very common in later years but not yet refined in the 18th century. He chose vitamin E because it was relatively easy to extract and had a high success rate. Plus, it could be mixed into makeup. Vitamin E would be added to almost all anti-aging and skin brightening products in the future. This would be the Paris Angel Company's next secret weapon for emptying ladies' wallets. Lamarck grew even more serious at the professional-sounding name. Your Highness, do you know how to obtain this, tocopherol? Joseph confirmed, I know a method to extract tocopherol from corn cobs. It requires some additional equipment, like centrifuges, settling dishes, and a constant temperature room. A constant temperature room? A laboratory that maintains a fixed temperature. How do we do that? Without air conditioning, maintaining a constant temperature would be a challenge, Joseph thought for a moment. We'll lay pipes under the floor and in the walls, and build a large water tank outside, connected to the pipes. When we need to raise the temperature, we'll heat the water tank. If we need to cool it, we'll draw water from the Seine. The water wheel can come in handy for that. Even in summer, the river water stayed below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius, which was good enough for biological cultivation. Lamarck was clearly interested in the anti-aging substance, but he also wanted to investigate plants in South America. He stood there, seemingly torn. Seeing his hesitation, Joseph dangled a bigger carrot. Mr. Lamarck, once we have the constant temperature chamber and other equipment, I actually have an even more miraculous drug that I need your help trial producing. This medicine can treat pneumonia, wound infections, puerperal fever, and even cure terminal illnesses like the Black Death. syphilis, and sepsis. Lamarck was stunned. If such a medicine existed, it would be his lifelong dream come true, to eliminate death from disease. His breathing quickened. "Your Highness, are you serious?" Seeing that he had taken the bait, Joseph smiled. "You'll know when you try it out, right? By the way, I'll personally fund your trip to South America later on. The amount will be even more generous than what the Medical Association is offering. And you'll have more freedom." Lamarck stopped hesitating and nodded eagerly. "Your Highness, I'll do everything I can to help you create that magical medicine." After Joseph gave Lamarck the method for refining vitamin E, he left the workshop. By the time his carriage arrived at Paris City Hall, it was past 3 p.m. Iman came out, waving off the fat man behind him. "No need to trouble yourself. Please go back." The man reluctantly turned around and re-entered the city hall, looking angry. Emin approached the carriage on the other side of the road and bowed to Joseph. "Your Highness, I've asked around. Among the properties listed for sale in Paris, 14 meet your requirements." Joseph said without hesitation, "Get the best one." "Your Highness, that would be the Nagel jewelry store on the Champs-Élysées. Because this book is being recommended for new books, it is very important for young authors. I urge readers to save it, vote for recommendations, monthly votes, and leave messages. The young author is grateful, your support is the motivation for me to code. Reader Group 103-621-7580, everyone is welcome to join the group and chat and discuss together." Chapter 35 Under the City of Amsterdam. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the Champs-Élysées, about 600 meters from the Tuileries Garden, Joseph faced south towards the Louvre. He stopped in front of a jewelry store, maybe 20 meters wide. The door stood slightly ajar, the Nagel jewelry sign still hung above. Iman had learned the owner was marrying a Spaniard and wanted to sell the place to move to Spain. Joseph stepped inside. The store was practically brand new, 2 floors each around 500 square meters. Thick oak floors gleamed underfoot, and brass accents trimmed the corners and stair railings. The decor was elegant, a subtle and refined beauty. He wasted no time, quickly agreeing to a price of 36,000 livres with the owner's representative, a fair price for the most desirable business district in Paris. While Iman handled the paperwork, Joseph turned to the architect who always accompanied him, finally putting him to good use. "Mr. Alkid, I need your help to make some changes." "At your service, Your Highness." Joseph pointed to the street-facing wall. "Replace these walls with glass, as much as possible, so people can see directly into the store from the street. Get rid of the wooden cases. I want custom glass display cases, about a meter high. Customers should be able to touch the merchandise easily. And the lighting needs to be upgraded. Use those crystal chandeliers from my living room. Make sure every corner is brilliantly lit. The exterior walls should be painted in light, inviting colors." Alkid scribbled notes until Joseph finally asked, "That's about it. How long will it take, and what's the cost?" The architect checked his notes. "About 2 weeks, around 3,000 livres." Joseph nodded. "I'll give you 5,000. And I need it done within a week. Can you do it?" "Yes, Your Highness. I'll do my best." Alkid hesitated. "Forgive me for saying so, but even if you sold holy water at a corner grocery, it would fly off the shelves. This store is already nice. Why spend so much on renovations?" Joseph smiled. "Because this store will sell more than just holy water." Alkid looked surprised. "You're selling the store?" "No, I mean another kind of merchandise. Think of this store as a sample. Netherlands, a military camp 4 kilometers south of Amsterdam. An old man in a long green uniform, half-gray hair, and a chin tilted slightly to the left, frowned at a map. Finally, he said, "I think we need to abandon Amstelveen and retreat south of Amsterdam, using the river as a defense." A middle-aged man in a dark white uniform cut him off sharply, his tone sarcastic. Colonel Walster, my men and I didn't travel all this way to watch you strategically reposition the army. Walster was a senior officer in the Dutch army, but he didn't dare to get angry at the French captain. He just raised his voice. Mr. Dubois, the Prussian vanguard is only 15 kilometers from Amstelveen. There are no fortifications in the town. Are we just supposed to sit here and die? Amstelveen was just south of Amsterdam. If it fell, Amsterdam would be completely exposed, the French captain continued sarcastically. Fortifications? Your army couldn't even defend Utrecht. Even if Amstelveen had 10 forts, I doubt it would make a difference. Walster's face flushed. What's the point of rehashing that? The important thing is to decide how to fight. Attack! Dubois shouted. French soldiers have always crushed the enemy with offense. A Dutch officer spoke up quickly. Mr. Dubois, even with the new recruits, we only have around 9,000 men. The Prussians have over 20,000. Attacking is suicide. Dubois smiled. 20,000 is their total force, but they don't have that many troops in the vanguard. More importantly, thanks to your rapid retreat, the Prussians have been chasing us for over a week. Because of the Dutch waterways, most of their artillery hasn't been able to keep up with the advance. And we have more than 10 cannons. Walster stared. You want to attack the Prussians? Why not? Dubois stared back. The Prussians won't expect a retreating Dutch army to suddenly counterattack. They'll be caught off guard. This is our chance. Walster squirmed. Even if your soldiers are brave, attacking head-on, even with cannons. Dubois shook his head. Not my soldiers. Yours. Me. My men. How can that work? Dubois interrupted. It's your men, and they'll attack the Prussian vanguard. They'll pretend to be defeated, well, they will be defeated. My men and your main force will wait for the Prussians in the narrow area between the Sibra River and Lake Abcoude. All my artillery will be deployed there. Several Dutch officers' eyes lit up. They imagined the Prussians caught in an ambush, fleeing in panic. They hadn't won a battle since Prussia intervened in the Netherlands. They desperately needed a victory. Walster frowned. Even if we defeat their vanguard, it won't matter. Their main force will arrive soon. We won't be able to hold out. The Provincial Council expects us to hold for 5 days. Dubois corrected him. Before we can hold for 5 days, we need a victory to stop the Prussian advance. If you retreat all the way to Holon, you can hold for over a week. He turned to a young officer with curly hair and a sharp nose. André, Note 1, how long before the main Prussian army reaches Amsterdam? The young officer stood tall. Sir, if we let them march unopposed, they'll be through Amstelveen by tomorrow night. But if we disrupt their supply lines, it will take much longer. Excellent. Dubois nodded approvingly. Then that task is yours. Yes, sir. Walster looked surprised. Lieutenant Davout only has 60 cavalrymen. How can he attack the Prussian supply line? Not just 60. Dubois smiled and shook his head. Your 650 cavalry will be joining him. Note 1, André Davout is a fictional character requested by readers, and is said to be the brother of the famous historical general Louis Nicolas Davout. This book is being recommended for new releases, which is extremely important for young authors. I urge readers to save this title, vote for recommendations, monthly votes, and leave messages. The young author is grateful. Your support is the motivation for me to keep writing. Reader Group 103-621-7580, everyone is welcome to join the group and chat and discuss together. Chapter 36 Blood and Courage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 650. Seriously? Walster shot back. That's my entire cavalry force. You can't just commandeer them like that. Captain Dubois cut him off with a smile. Hand over the cavalry, or face the Prussians alone. Your choice. No, wait. The Dutch commander-in-chief threw his hands up in exasperation. The cavalry's yours to command. We can't be fighting each other right now. Exactly the right call. Dubois turned to a French lieutenant with curly hair. André, execute the original plan. How soon can you be ready to roll out? André snapped a salute. Yes, sir. My men are prepped and ready to move out at a moment's notice. Though, the Dutch cavalry might need a little encouragement. Dubois nodded. They're under your command now. Go light a fire under them and get them moving. Yes, sir. As the cavalry lieutenant left, Dubois surveyed the Dutch officers inside the tent. So, we're all in agreement then. We're taking the fight to the Prussian vanguard. Everyone nodded in silence. Excellent. Thanks, gentlemen. Dubois moved to the map and pointed to the Sibra River. Mr. Walster, I need the Hague troops positioned here. The Dutch officer looked annoyed. There are no Hague troops anymore. They're all under the Provincial Federation Council now. Dubois shrugged. Fine, whatever you call them. They'll integrate with my artillery and wait for the Prussian advance here. The Freedom Corps will set up 200 meters south, ready to absorb the initial Prussian assault. The Free Corps was a militia group put together by the Dutch Patriot Party, while the Hague troops were William V's original elite guard. The difference in their combat effectiveness was pretty obvious. Of course, the Hague troops had also participated in William V's exile, so their loyalty to the United Provincial Congress was unquestioned. A Dutch officer immediately objected. You're using the Free Corps as cannon fodder. Why aren't the French taking the front lines? Walster raised a hand to silence him. Captain Dubois is right. Without experienced troops to back them up, the Free Corps will fall apart the second they see a Prussian uniform. Dubois said calmly, the Free Corps doesn't have to fight to the death with the Prussians. After the initial contact, they simply need to fall back to the flanks. My only concern is whether their training is sufficient to execute the maneuver without turning into a disorganized mess. Walster puffed out his chest and said solemnly, I'll personally command the Freedom Corps. Dubois nodded and continued, now, from this point forward, we will. Under the strokes of his pencil, the area between the Sibra River and Lake Abcoude, less than 3 miles wide, was marked with the positions of Dutch and French forces, south of Amstelveen. Report. A scout rode up to André, reined in his horse, snapped a salute. Prussian forces spotted 2 miles east, over 4,000 strong. Mostly infantry, with a small cavalry contingent. André nodded. This had to be the Prussian vanguard. He immediately turned and ordered, move the entire force half a mile west. Move silently and slowly. Watch out for Prussian scouts. Yes, sir. André checked his pocket watch, then consulted the map. According to the initial intelligence, the main Prussian force was about 9 miles away, just downriver from the Sibra. At their current pace, they should be able to bypass them by noon tomorrow. True to his expectation, at 2 p.m. the next day, the scouts spotted a large Prussian supply train, guarded by over 3,000 Prussian troops. André ordered his entire force to line up on the western bank of the Sibra River. He then noticed his palms were slick with sweat. He had barely been out of military academy for 2 years. This was his first time actually commanding a battle. Of course he was nervous. He had initially been the second in command of this cavalry company, but the company commander had caught dysentery on the way to the Netherlands and returned to France for treatment. Thus, he was given command of the French Volunteer Cavalry Company. He gazed at the distant plains and rivers, and a wave of anxiety washed over him. He wasn't afraid to face the Prussians, especially since it was only a harassment mission. Even if it came to a full-blown battle, he was confident that his glorious blood and fearless courage would carry the day. 5 days, even if he died on the battlefield, He was sure that his sword would stand between the Prussian army and their goal. His real worry was what would happen 5 days from now, after the French volunteers and Dutch troops held off the Prussians for 5 days. Would the Prussians actually retreat? His uncle had learned through the grapevine that this entire plan had been conceived by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, a 13-year-old boy's war game. André tried to banish the thought. He wasn't afraid of death. Dying on the battlefield was a soldier's fate. What he feared was a pointless death. Especially since he had come to the Netherlands as a private citizen. If they failed to save the Patriot Party, the army wouldn't even acknowledge that he had given his life for the cause. He hoped that this son of the gods was really as brilliant as everyone claimed. After what felt like an eternity, the scout's voice cut through his thoughts. Report. The Prussian supply train is approaching. André's eyes narrowed. He waved forward and shouted, "Attack!" The French cavalry company took the lead, with the Dutch former Imperial Guard cavalry bringing up the rear. As they charged towards the Prussian baggage train, in the distance, the sharp notes of Prussian bugles sounded. A large group of infantry rapidly assembled, forming a dense line formation with their backs to the convoy. Their muskets and bayonets were pointed forward, ready to hold their ground. Smoke billowed, and hooves thundered. André could only see the massed ranks of Prussian soldiers in the distance. He raised his Charleville 1728 carbine and fired a shot toward the Prussian line. The cavalry behind him followed suit, firing their pistols in a thunderous volley, instantly filling the battlefield with smoke. However, they were still over 400 meters away from the Prussians, and the bullets had no effect at that range, but the intense gunfire clearly rattled the Prussian commander. The cavalry in front of him looked like 1,000 strong, and it occurred to him that they weren't dealing with the main Dutch force. André, having emptied his pistol, immediately led his cavalry in a sharp turn to the south, galloping past the Prussian formation at a distance of just over 300 meters. The Prussian troops waited for over 20 minutes, but saw no enemy attack. Cursing, they prepared to reform their ranks and continue the march. Then, another large group of cavalry came thundering down from the side and rear, accompanied by a barrage of gunfire. The Prussian commander's face darkened. He ordered his men to form a line to meet the attack, but the enemy cavalry simply circled in front of them and roared away again. The Prussians didn't have enough cavalry to protect the convoy, so they couldn't give chase, and so, André led his cavalry back and forth, forcing the Prussians into defensive formations over and over. It wasn't until reinforcements from the main Prussian cavalry force arrived at dusk that André finally pulled back. André allowed his troops to rest in a dense forest for a few hours, then immediately gave the order to head north overnight, straight toward the main Prussian assembly area. Chapter 37 The Dutch-Prussian War. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 5 kilometers south of Amstelveen, outside the Prussian army's brightly lit camp, André directed soldiers to unload 2 gun barrels from their horses. Since it was a light cavalry attack, heavy cannons were out of the question. André carried a small 1-pounder, weighing less than 450 pounds, light enough to be transported on horseback. He hadn't even bothered with a gun mount. Instead, he dug a hole, propped the gun barrel in it at an angle, and took a shot in the dark at the Prussian camp. Gunpowder loaded, ammo in, fuse lit. 2 quick explosions later, all hell broke loose in the Prussian camp. Once the Prussians figured out where the attack came from, they mobilized over 10 cannons and returned fire. But André had already strapped the 1-pounder back onto his horse and was hightailing it south towards Utrecht under the cover of darkness. The Duke of Braunschweig, commander-in-chief of the Prussian army, didn't sleep a wink. He couldn't figure out why the Dutch, who had been getting their butts kicked, would suddenly provoke them. At dawn, he sent cavalry to scout the area, making sure there wasn't an ambush, then ordered the march to Amsterdam to resume. But the Prussian advance was getting hammered by the Dutch. Even though the Prussians didn't expect the Dutch to come at them, the army, trained by Frederick II, was top-notch and immediately launched a counterattack. The Dutch were still pushovers. After losing about 20 men, they bolted. Prussian forward commander Blücher reacted fast, leading his troops in hot pursuit until they reached the east shore of Lake Apkud. There, stretching for miles, was a Dutch army in line formation, the standard infantry tactic of the 18th century. Soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, thousands lined up neatly. Usually, there were 3 or 4 rows, standing tall and taking turns firing muskets at the enemy. Blücher smirked. So this was the Dutch trick. Use a retreat as bait to lure them into a trap. They underestimate Prussian soldiers, he thought. He immediately ordered his army to halt the pursuit and form a line formation. He also sent an Camber battalion and a company to attack in a column. The Prussians moved with speed and precision. In just 20 minutes, over 4,000 soldiers were in formation. Over 2,300 formed a horizontal line, almost 2/3 of a mile long, facing the Dutch. Behind them, 800 soldiers formed dozens of columns, ready to break through the enemy line at any moment. Nearly 200 cavalry were on standby on both flanks. The organization and discipline alone were enough to make the Dutch soldiers' blood run cold. A bugle sounded, the Prussian drums beat out a rapid rhythm, and the company commanders waved their swords forward, giving the order to attack. At the same time, several 4-pound cannons positioned among the Prussian lines started roaring. The Prussian soldiers advanced to the beat of the drums, and the infantry lines got closer. The Dutch, under the artillery barrage, began to waver, but officers with sabers forced them back into place. When the armies were about 100 yards apart, the Dutch opened fire, but the Prussians seemed unfazed, advancing in perfect order. Men fell in the Prussian formation, but they didn't even flinch. When they were only about 60 yards away, the drumming on the Prussian side stopped abruptly. "Raise your muskets, aim, fire," thought the Prussian soldiers. Fired a volley with cold precision. Gaps ripped open in the Dutch line, and screams of panic erupted as the two sides exchanged fire. The difference in military skill became obvious. The Prussians fired 5 shots for every 3 of the Dutch. And the Prussians moved like a machine, the entire line firing almost simultaneously. The Dutch, on the other hand, were disorganized, with many soldiers firing wildly without aiming. After the Prussians fired over 10 rounds, smoke covered the battlefield, and the Dutch began to retreat en masse. Blücher didn't hesitate. Attack in columns. Yes, sir. To a unique rhythm, over 40 columns of Prussian soldiers charged fearlessly through the smoke and fire. Their own line advanced 10 steps, dozens of the charging Prussian soldiers fell, but the columns kept moving forward. The soldiers at the front took the bullets, while their teammates kept trotting on. The Dutch infantry line quickly broke apart, and the soldiers fled. However, officers quickly regained control and directed them east and west to avoid the Prussian assault. Blücher, observing through his telescope, pointed west. Cavalry pursuit. Yes, sir. His observation was spot on. While Wolster commanded the eastern retreat, the western side was far more chaotic. Blücher himself commanded the main forces to continue advancing. At this rate, they would take Amstelveen today. But as the last Dutch soldiers left the battlefield, rapid gunfire erupted in front of the Prussian army. Several massive iron balls screamed through the Prussian line, leaving a bloody mist. One of the iron balls hit the ground and rolled over 40 yards, crushing a commander's arm and calf before stopping. Blücher's eyes widened. Judging by the sound, there were at least 10 cannons, and they were big ones. He had marched in a hurry for days, bringing only 5 4-pound cannons, and they were getting blown away by the artillery fire. The Prussian attack stalled. Blücher hesitated, glanced at Amstelveen in the distance, gritted his teeth, and ordered 1.5 battalions of the reserve to press forward. The Duke of Brunswick, commanding the main body of the Prussian army, had been marching for only 2 hours when he heard heavy artillery fire from the north. He frowned. All his own artillery was here, and Blücher only had 5 cannons. How could there be such a ruckus? Could that be Dutch cannons? But their artillery had been wiped out weeks ago. Even if they somehow got more, they didn't have the gunners. Artillery was the hardest branch to train. Without years of practice and a strong grasp of math, you'd be lucky to hit anything. After firing dozens of shots, while the Duke of Brunswick was pondering, a messenger rushed up, reporting that a large number of Dutch cavalry had appeared near Utrecht. The Duke felt a surge of anxiety. Utrecht was his logistics base. Food and supplies were shipped from there to the front line daily. It couldn't fall. What were the Dutch up to? A veteran commander, he quickly shook his head. He had a clear military advantage. Why play the enemy's game? Thanks to book friend 20181219192038210 for your generous reward. The young author is grateful. Your support is my motivation for coding. Thanks again. Chapter 38 William II's Decision. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Duke of Brunswick immediately ordered the main Prussian force to hold their position. He wanted Blücher to scout the enemy's strength before making any rash moves. Then, he dispatched 3 infantry regiments and 1 cavalry regiment to Utrecht to establish a 20-kilometer defensive line along Amstelveen, securing their supply lines. Before noon, more bad news arrived. Blücher's regiment had clashed fiercely with the Dutch along the Sibra River, suffering heavy casualties, over 800 men. From shelling in a pincer movement, the Duke of Brunswick took a deep breath. He hadn't expected the Dutch to put up such a fight. He quickly sent reinforcements to Blücher. It took 2 days to complete the logistics defense and reorganize the forward troops. The Duke of Brunswick wasn't concerned about the lost time. He had shored up the weaknesses caused by his initial rapid advance. Now, he planned to crush the Dutch with overwhelming force. On the 4th day after Dubois repelled the Prussian advance, he faced the Duke of Brunswick's full-scale assault on the plains south of Amstelveen. There was no room for strategy, only a brutal clash of iron and blood. Dubois directed his 12 cannons to bombard the densest concentrations of Prussian soldiers. André led his cavalry in harassing attacks around the Prussian flanks, tying down their cavalry. The Dutch held the high ground. Emboldened by their recent victory, their morale was sky-high, and they fought with astonishing ferocity. The Prussian army attacked until nightfall but couldn't break through the Dutch defenses. At dawn, the Duke of Brunswick resumed his offensive. The two sides exchanged intense musket fire and artillery barrages, leaving thousands of corpses scattered across the battlefield. The fighting was so intense that by early afternoon, the Dutch artillery ran out of ammunition. André saw Captain Dubois leading his gun crews away from the empty gun emplacements, grabbing muskets to join the infantry. He knew they were in serious trouble. He glanced at the Prussian cannons still belching fire, crossed himself, raised his saber, and shouted to the blood-soaked soldiers behind him, "Follow me. We're taking out those Prussian guns." That the French cavalry slammed their sword hilts against their breastplates and roared, "Yeah." That the Duke of Brunswick frowned, surveying the smoke-filled battlefield. He was surprised by the tenacity of the Dutch resistance, especially their artillery. Although they had less than half the cannons he did, their exceptional gunnery skills had allowed them to fight to a standstill. At this rate, taking Amsterdam would come at a terrible cost, completely derailing his original plans. He was considering committing his reserves for a final, all-out attack when the guards arrived with a messenger bearing the king's orders. The Duke of Brunswick read the withdrawal order signed by King William II and frowned. "What's going on?" That the messenger said awkwardly. "We've confirmed that Princess Wilhelmina is not being held by the Dutch." "What? That's impossible." The Duke of Brunswick's eyes widened. His whole purpose had been to rescue Wilhelmina, and now he was being told she wasn't even there. The messenger said helplessly, "She was found in the southern Netherlands. Apparently, she was kidnapped by a group of Italian-speaking thugs. The Antwerp police rescued her, killing 2 of the kidnappers in the process." The southern Netherlands he was referring to was the area that would later become Belgium, then under Austrian rule. Kidnapped? This doesn't make sense. The messenger continued, "Your Majesty, Princess Wilhelmina has already returned to Prussia." The Duke of Brunswick looked at the withdrawal order again and said reluctantly, "Even so, we can use this opportunity to crush these rebels and restore the Prince of Orange to power." That the messenger gave another awkward smile. Actually, the Dutch Parliament officially announced yesterday that they would allow the Prince of Orange to return to Amsterdam and resume his position as stadtholder. The Duke of Brunswick was stunned. Finally, he waved to the herald beside him. "Order a full retreat." Joseph had orchestrated William V's return. The Patriot Party initially refused, but the French envoy, Colbert, relayed the Crown Prince's reasoning: think of the stadtholder as a figurehead. Instead of letting William V stir up trouble from abroad, bring him back to Amsterdam and keep an eye on him. His power base is in The Hague. You control the army. You can even use him as a hostage. The Patriot Party happily agreed. 3 days earlier, French spies had ambushed Wilhelmina near Nijmegen as she was on her way to church. The Prussian princess believed her location was secret and only traveled with a handful of guards. She was kidnapped by Italian-speaking thugs with little resistance. Although Prussia controlled the major cities in the southern Netherlands, the smaller towns and villages were still in Patriot hands. The French spies left the Netherlands without interference and brought Wilhelmina to the southern Netherlands, sending Wilhelm II a ransom demand. Later, their contact in Antwerp secured 2 corpses to pose as the dead kidnappers, notified the local police of suspicious foreigners, and arranged for a newspaper reporter to cover the story. With Wilhelmina publicly rescued by the police, she could no longer claim to be a hostage of the Patriot Party. The biggest justification for King Wilhelm II's intervention in the Netherlands had evaporated. The Patriot Party then made concessions, and France conducted a massive military exercise in southern Luxembourg. At the same time, the Duke of Brunswick had failed to take Amsterdam. Finally, William II, looking at his empty treasury, decided to pull back his troops. André looked at the thousands of enemy troops surrounding the Prussian artillery positions and the Prussian cavalry constantly watching him. He knew he'd likely be cut down before even reaching the Prussian cannons, but this was their only chance to turn the tide, and he had to take it, even with only a sliver of hope. He gently squeezed his horse's flanks, gradually accelerating, and was about to approach the right wing of the Prussian infantry when a bugle call rang out from the Prussian lines, and the Prussian infantry began to retreat. He reined in his horse and watched until the Prussians were almost out of sight and the Dutch around him erupted in cheers. Finally, he was convinced the enemy was gone. He crossed himself, looked up at the sky, and felt a wave of emotion well up in his chest. He's the Son of God. He actually did it. At dawn, Joseph left for Paris by carriage. Today was the grand opening of the Paris Angel store on the Champs-Élysées, and he was scheduled to cut the ribbon at noon. Even though it was just a store opening, the store itself was a product, so he wanted to build some excitement around it to increase its value. The opening had already been heavily advertised in the newspapers. By the time he arrived at the Champs-Élysées, the place was packed, especially the section where the new Paris Angel store was located. It was completely impassable. I'd like to recommend a friend's new book, Princess Please Respect Yourself. It's a fascinating historical novel set in the Middle Ages. Book description: In 1243, a Chinese man named Dai Jun mysteriously finds himself in the body of a refugee named Finn, struggling to survive in the brutal and unforgiving Middle Ages. No system, no special powers, nothing but the knowledge in his head. He doesn't know what happened to him, but he ends up rescuing a princess on the side of the road. Even more outrageous, Her Royal Highness seems to be interested in him. Finn finds himself in a tricky situation. Finn, I really like you. Let's get married. Princess, please have some self-respect. Alternative titles for the book: I became a royal consort after time traveling to the Middle Ages and starting from scratch. I am the Zhu Yuanzhang of the West. Chapter 39: The Crown Prince's Blessing. Please follow up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Angel Water used to be just a Versailles thing, but after a few socialites gave it a try, word of its amazing effects spread like wildfire through Paris. Now, everyone in Parisian high society knows about this miracle beauty product. Clears acne in 2 days, smooths skin in 5 days, fades dark spots in a week. These claims have been proven by countless users. And then there was the ad that started running on the front pages of all the major newspapers 10 days ago, just a single line in huge letters: Angel Water, you're worth it. Simple and direct, it was like an arrow to every woman's heart. Yeah, Angel Water was expensive, but so what? I deserve a bottle. Flipping through the paper, you'd see news about the grand opening of the Paris Angel store. The word was that Angel Water would only be available there from now on, and they'd be launching tons of new products. The grand opening was set for noon. But people were already camped out in front of the store before dawn, peering through the clear glass windows at the displays inside. Joseph frowned, looking at the crowds clogging the streets. Even though he owned the place, he couldn't even get close to the door. It wasn't until Quisaud ordered the guards to clear the way that a narrow path appeared on the Champs-Élysées. Right at noon, a dozen or so clerks, all over 6 feet tall, with blonde hair, blue eyes, and looking sharp in bright red uniforms, marched out of the Paris Angel store. They formed 2 perfect rows at the flower-draped entrance, while a band behind them played some upbeat celebratory music. 2 slender girls stretched a red ribbon across the front of the store, with a big floral arrangement in the middle. The store manager stepped forward, bowed, and announced in a loud voice, "We are honored to have the Son of God, from Versailles, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of France, to cut the ribbon for our grand opening." The Champs-Élysées erupted in cheers. People had seen the royal guards and guessed someone important was coming, but they never imagined the Crown Prince himself. Joseph, looking dapper, emerged from the store, waved to the crowd, and announced, "Today marks the official opening of the first Paris Angel store. Paris Angel's mission is to help every French woman stay young and beautiful forever. Happy shopping, everyone." The crowd went wild, cheering and some even chanting, "Long live the Crown Prince." Joseph grabbed the scissors from the manager, snipped the ribbon, and then quickly escaped through the back door, with Quisaud covering his retreat. He had no choice. He was afraid those starry-eyed socialites would mob him if he lingered. As someone started throwing flower petals everywhere, the manager smiled and signaled that everyone could come in and shop. The crowd buzzed about the fantastic opening and surged into the store. In what felt like seconds, the 2-story, 10,000 plus square foot store was packed, with thousands more people outside, anxiously waiting for their turn. A tall, elegant young woman in a dark blue dress and a wide-brimmed hat with a veiled face looked at the crowds outside the Paris Angel store, a slight frown creasing her brow. "Why are there so many people? If I'd known, I would have had Mr. Balvito buy it for me." She touched the faint acne scars on her cheeks, as if steeling herself. A few days ago, a close friend had given her a small sample of angel water, supposedly the hottest skincare product out there. After just a few uses, her stubborn acne had noticeably cleared up, but that tiny bit of angel water was almost gone. For the sake of her face, she had to get another bottle, no matter what. She glanced at the Paris Angel store and then headed quickly toward the back. Joseph came out the back door of the store. His carriage was waiting. As he was about to get in, he spotted a scruffy boy, maybe 8 or 9, with messy hair and a dirty face, begging pathetically in the alleyway. "Please, kind sir and madam, spare a few coins." The boy glanced at the younger girl leaning against the wall, and his voice became more urgent. "Please, just 5 deniers so I can buy a Crown Prince's blessing for my sister. Please, she's been burning up with fever all day." But the alley was deserted. Even the few people who hurried by didn't even give him a second glance. Joseph walked over and dropped 2 silver coins into the boy's broken jar. The boy immediately knelt down, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, sir, thank you. May God bless you." Quisaud helped him to his feet. Joseph said, "It's nothing. Go check on your sister. By the way, what's this Crown Prince's blessing you mentioned?" The boy quickly explained. "Kind sir, it's that little pill called shui yang or something. It's supposed to save lives, and it's really cheap. I heard that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince invented it, so everyone calls it the Crown Prince's blessing." Joseph nodded to Iman, who immediately produced a few salicin pills. Joseph used it himself to manage his pneumonia. "Is this the medicine?" Joseph held out the light yellow pill to the boy. "Yes. That's it." The boy's face lit up. He leaned over and gave a pill to his sister, then offered her some water, nodding encouragingly. "Swallow it. You'll feel better soon." As he started to kneel again, Joseph quickly steadied him, asking, "Where's your family?" The little boy gave a weak smile. "They all got sick and died last year. Just my sister and me left." As he spoke, his stomach let out a series of loud growls. Joseph felt a pang of sympathy and gave him some more money. Then, he noticed the crowd swarming to buy angel water on the other side of the alley. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. He looked at the little boy. Do you want to stop being hungry? The boy nodded earnestly. Let me show you something. Joseph pointed to the crowd. See that shop over there, Paris Angel? Use this money to buy some chairs and rent them out front for 2 deniers an hour. Remember to ask for a deposit. Once you know the store well, you can buy clean clothes to change into. Then, you can offer to stand in line for the ladies who don't want to wait, or even buy things for them. I bet you could charge a lever each time. The boy's eyes widened, and he gave a deep bow. Thank you so much. You must be sent by God to save my sister and me. Behind a pillar in the alley, the long-legged woman with the veiled face watched Joseph from a distance, whispering to herself. That man, is that the crown prince? I didn't expect him to have a good heart. Maybe the royal family aren't all snakes and parasites after all. Chapter 40 Hunger Marketing and Small Profits but Quick Turnover. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The long-legged girl waited until Joseph's carriage was out of sight, then slipped to the back of the Paris Angel Company building. She peeked around, making sure nobody was watching, then bent down and peered through the keyhole. An old janitor sat just inside the entrance, staring blankly. Door held, she took in the building's layout, bit her lip, and moved to the window beside the back door. She pulled a thin wire from her bun, inserted it into the window crack, jiggled it a couple of times, and quietly popped the latch. She eased the window open a crack and slipped inside. The janitor, less than 10 feet away, didn't notice a thing. She tossed a pebble against the back door, making a soft click. The janitor frowned and got up to investigate. Seizing the moment, she stepped forward, placed her hand on the back of the chair behind him, spun around like a cat, and vanished down the hallway. The janitor thought he felt a breeze and turned around, but the hallway was empty. Making her way through a warehouse, the girl easily dodged several clerks and emerged in the Paris Angel sales area on the first floor. The store was packed, but luckily, the staff was managing the number of people allowed inside, so it wasn't too chaotic. She glanced at the crowd jammed against the glass windows outside, smiled triumphantly, and turned her attention to the store she'd been so curious about. 2 life-sized oil paintings stood near the entrance. The women in the paintings were nearly identical, except the woman on the left had dull skin and a few blemishes. A sign read "Before use." The woman in the painting on the right had smooth, fair skin, looking radiant, and her sign read "After use." The girl strolled further inside, noticing that there were no shelves, only a dozen or so waist-high tiered glass tables, neatly arranged. Various beautifully packaged cosmetics sat on the glass tables, with small wooden signs displaying product names and prices, all sparkling under the crystal chandeliers. Soft piano music played throughout, creating a dreamy and upscale atmosphere. Even just browsing was a treat. Face mask? She stopped in front of something that looked like a cloth mask. What's this? A tall, handsome clerk approached, bowing politely. Miss, our facial mask is a new skincare product. It effectively. The girl listened to his rich voice and couldn't help noticing his strong, handsome neck, which made her feel a little flustered. Before long, her small bag was filled with angel water, face masks, hand cream, and a bunch of other stuff. The store had a strange policy. You grabbed your items first and paid at the end. She glanced at her bulging bag and sighed inwardly. She'd only planned on buying a bottle of angel water, but she'd ended up buying so much more. Still, the products were so tempting. A wealthy woman brushed past her, carrying 3 overflowing bags of cosmetics, muttering, "Buy whatever you want, no price increase, thank goodness." The girl instantly felt better. See? Nobody could resist these darn good things. She lingered in the store for almost an hour before finally deciding to pay and leave. The handsome clerk told her that she could apply for a VIP card, which offered free shipping and complimentary gift card writing. Silver and gold cards offered discounts of 15% and 10%. She inquired, "So, what does it take to get a gold card?" Oh, anyone can apply, ma'am, the clerk replied with a smile. You simply deposit 1,000 livres in advance. The money remains yours, you can deduct it from future purchases. The girl was stunned by the 1,000 livres. And the silver card? She asked. A 500 livre deposit, my dear lady. When the girl fought her way out of the crowd and looked back at the Paris Angel sign, she stamped her foot in annoyance. Damn it, she couldn't resist. That VIP card cost a whopping 200 livres, and now she wouldn't be able to go to the opera or buy new shoes for the next couple of months. She muttered with a grimace, if I'd known, I should have taken Mr. Weston's money last time. She stopped mid-sentence, looking at her reflection in the glass. Sorrel. What are you thinking? You're not doing this for money, but for freedom and justice. Don't let money corrupt your ideals. The next day, the general manager and store manager of Paris Angel Company arrived at the Palace of Versailles early and reported the previous day's sales to Joseph in his living room. The bespectacled old man, formerly the manager of Paris's largest jewelry store, had been hired by Paris Angel at a high salary. He held his ledger and read clearly. We sold a total of 2,206 bottles of angel water, hand cream, and other products, and 2,110 facial masks. There are 71 regular VIP cards, 35 silver cards, and 40 gold cards. He paused, put away his ledger, and continued, the total income is 126,562 livres. Even though Joseph had been expecting good results, he was still taken aback by the numbers. This wasn't opening a store, it was robbing a bank. He exclaimed, 120,000. Are you sure? It's 120,000. The old man nervously glanced to the side. The middle-aged man with a flat nose and a slight limp lowered his head and said in a low voice, Your Highness, this is my fault. I underestimated the sales volume and even ran out of stock. After 5:30 p.m. yesterday, the store was completely sold out. We could have earned more. Joseph coughed and inwardly gave the man a thumbs up. This was the same general manager of the Plymouth shipyard, who Eamon had praised so highly. He always felt he was underperforming for his boss. He nodded. Mr. Brent, that's actually quite good. Creating a buzz can boost customers' eagerness to buy. From now on, let's only stock 95% of the expected sales volume. Creating a buzz? Though Brent didn't fully understand the term, he nodded and wrote down the Crown Prince's request. Joseph knew that it would be hard to repeat sales of 120,000 livres per day. After all, more than half came from VIP card deposits, and those customers wouldn't necessarily spend more money on product. Plus, now that consumers had purchased so much, it would take them a while to use it all up. However, selling 7,000 or 8,000 livres every day shouldn't be a problem, and more importantly, the Paris Angel brand was taking off. He had to capitalize on this. He paused and told Brent, contact the best workshops in Paris to customize a batch of jewelry, hats, and shoes. I want the finest materials, the best craftsmanship, and the most fashionable styles, no matter the cost. Also, sign a contract with the workshops, barring them from recreating the same styles for anyone else without our permission. Yes, Your Highness. Brent nodded, taking notes, then cautiously asked, what's your plan? We'll brand these items with the Paris Angel logo and sell them in specialty stores. We'll price them 3 to 5 times higher than cost. These byproducts will focus on high-volume, low-profit sales. Dear readers, writing a book is a difficult endeavor, and during the new book period, the book needs a lot of exposure before it can be recommended, so please help promote this book. Please invite your friends to read this book together. Please introduce this book to more people to read. Tyann Haitian is grateful.